everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Chia and today I'm going to be doing my November wrap-up. In November I read about 10 books. I would like to start doing where I start putting like the stats and stuff, but right now I think I just want to start implementing it into 2025 instead. Can you guys believe that it's almost the end of 2024? It's ridiculous how fast this year went and I'm excited slash kind of nervous for the next new year. I'm highly anticipating a lot of the new releases that are coming out next year, especially all the ones that I've been waiting for the longest time, especially Onyx Storm. Let's get started with the November wrap-up. Like I said before, I read 10 books in November, and a lot of the rest of the books that I read in November are like my fall theme ones and the spooky theme ones that I've been trying to get through from my fall TBR. The first book that I read in the month of November was Across the Dark Sea by Clare. This book is a part of the Beneath the Black Sail series. It's sort of like the prequel, and it follows a girl named Avis, and Avis is a part of a high society where she is during her age where she is basically coming out into the world to start being courted by marriage, and she has been asked to be married by a childhood crush. Described as wild by her family and parents because she just doesn't want to follow the rules, and when she comes up to her dad to ask permission to marry her childhood best friend, he ends up promising her off to somebody else instead, who is a much older gentleman who she doesn't want to be married off to, but basically her dad's word is law, so she can't really get out of it, and he tells her that she has to marry him or else, and she ends up running away with her childhood best friend so they can go get married, and then they end up escaping off of like a pirate ship. During her voyage she ends up learning the pirate life, basically learns how to be a pirate and learns how to run the ship, but she finds that it's not really working out with her husband, and she's seeing that he's maybe not faring with the pirate sea life, but she finds that she's loving it. I gave this book a 3.75. I honestly thought that nothing really went on during this book, and I liked seeing the progression of Avis in this book, how she truly finds a way to get away from her father's rule, learns how to find her own identity. I guess it's just an okay book. It's a prequel. It continues on to a series where she's the female pirate captain of a ship, and I'm basically reading this story to get to another series, which is Kiss of Iron by Clare, and this one is the series before that, but this was just okay. It was a good start to it, but I can't wait to find out more in the next series. It was pretty mediocre. Next book I read in the month of November was Phantasma by Kaylie. This book is very popular at the moment, especially since it came out during the beginning of September. This has the best spooky vibes. I read this book in my 24-hour Halloween reading vlog, so if you want a more in-depth review, consider checking that reading vlog out. This book follows a character named Ophelia, and Ophelia is a part of a family of necromancers. She and her sister are the only ones left because her mom passes away at the beginning of the book, and once her mom passes away she has to do a ritual in order to inherit her mom's powers, and she finds out that her mom went into bad debt with the manor that they're living in right now, and the bank is basically threatening to foreclose in the house. So her sister Genevieve wants to participate in an event called Phantasma that comes to different places of the world every year, and this book is set in New Orleans. It's finally come into New Orleans and her sister Genevieve wants to attend, but Ophelia finds that she did it in secret, has to go into Phantasma in order to be able to rescue her sister. The trials are very notorious because they either make people quit because of how difficult the trials are. I guess each level follows a different level of hell or a circle of hell, but while she enters into this competition she ends up getting help from a phantom named Blackwall, and I guess you could say this book is a combination of Caraval mixed with Danny Phantom because she ends up having sort of like a romance with the Phantom. I really like the setting of this book. It's very set in a dark, mysterious manner. These trials are comparable to if you've seen the movie Saw, where it's like kind of gets gory and you have to sacrifice other people's lives and figure out if your life is more important than theirs. And Ophelia finds ways to grow as a character. She's the older sister, and I personally relate to that because I am the older sister. She's always felt a responsibility and the need to carry on her family name, but her little sister has always tried to urge her to find her own path in the world. Apologies if there's any lighting or angle changes. I had to delete stuff from my memory card. Apparently it filled up, which I don't know how, but I might be talking way too much, but I had to delete some footage. I don't know where I left off. I gave this book a 4.5. The only reason why I couldn't give it a complete 5 stars is because I felt like the ending of the book kind of wrapped up too quickly, and there was a big revelation at the end that I felt was kind of brushed over and forgiven way too easily, especially with the amount of issues that they went through in this book. I think there was a trope in here that I absolutely despise, that I don't like being included. I just didn't like how the ending was resolved very quickly, but I do recommend if you like the vibes of Caraval, but darker and more adult mixed with trials like Saw and a love interest like Danny Phantom. And the next book I read was Bound by Fate by Caudle, and I was fortunate enough to be able to read an ARC copy of this. This book is a part of the Realms of Peril series. The first book is called Bound by Fate. It's indie published, and it follows a girl named Kaya, and Kaya is marked by the gods and has to participate in trials in order to be chosen by the gods to get gifted powers and also become one of the worthy of the nation. And so she goes through a trial that happens in Bound by Fate, and throughout this trial she encounters a lot of magical creatures and has to prove herself. And in this world there's one lord who rules over one of the nations named Lord Riker, and he's sort of like a shadow magic wielding fae. During this point he finds a mating bond is clicked into place, and he realizes that Kaya is his fated mate because of the fact that they're both worthy and they can't necessarily be together because apparently their combined powers would be sort of a unfairness to the other nations. They are forbidden to be together. It's a forbidden fated romance, but they can't stay away from each other, of course. But there's a cliffhanger that ends the first book, and then it leads off into the second book called Bound by Fate. And the official release of this book was December 5th, and this one continues on from the cliffhanger at the end of the book, and this follows all the characters as they're separated. And I gave this book a 4 stars. It was a very wild ride. There was new perspectives that were introduced into this book, and the world was expanded more, and it follows more of the other characters, and they are going through it mentally, physically. You know, for like being this mainly about Kaya, she's not that present in this book, but I just felt like it kind of dragged a little bit through parts, and to be honest I was kind of disappointed by it. I still gave it a 4 stars because I did like how it ended, and I can't wait for the third one to come out, and the world is still done really well. I just felt, for my personal opinion, that it had kind of like second book syndrome because it just dragged on parts and it kind of strayed away from the main plot of the book. I still enjoyed my time with it. The next book I read in the month of November was Curse of Shadows and Thorns by L.J. Andrews. This book is a part of the Broken Kingdom series. This book comes before the Everking series, which is L.J. Andrews' current series. This book follows the parents of the characters in the Eversea series. And this is a 9-book series, and I think this one is sort of a Cinderella, I want to say, or Beauty and the Beast. Oh, no, it's Beauty and the Beast. This follows a girl named Elise, and she is born into the royal family. She's the niece of the king. She is forced to find a hand in marriage because her king wants to help strengthen the lines of his family and basically threatens her father's life in order for her to continue on with getting a hand in marriage. And they hire a negotiator named Legion, and he is meant to facilitate the marriage negotiations between Elise and the lords. And of course during this point they try to get to know each other and slowly fall for each other. I don't know, it's sort of like a complicated world. There's sort of like a conflict happening between two different groups of the nation. She is a part of the Timuran kingdom, and they have a conflict with the Etas, and Etas are sort of forming a rebellion against the king. It's mainly a political book, and it's with a little love story between her and Legion. I felt like the ending was kind of okay. You find a revelation at the end that I kind of saw coming, and I didn't really see a character development at all between the characters, but I give it 3.75. I hope that it furthers along throughout the next book. It's a 9-book series. That's a lot of books to get through, so I might have to continue it within the next year because my T-bar is just too long. It's my main complaint, and I'm sure other book girlies have the same complaint as I do. The next book I read in the month of November was the Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. This book follows a character named Vivian, and she falls for a character named Reese Penhallow, who comes to her town to attend the local college that is named after his family. And they're sort of like the founding family of this small town in Georgia. And then during this time of the summer, he runs into Vivian and they end up sort of having a summer fling, but she ends up getting her heart broken. Through heartbreak and a combination of alcohol, she ends up cursing him. And after 9 years, he comes back to the town because he has to strengthen the ley lines because it's a magical town and she's a witch and he's also a witch. But the moment he steps foot in town, he ends up getting all this bad luck everywhere, and Vivian runs into him again and realizes that the harmless curse that she ends up wishing on him might have becoming serious. So through a series of events and different little tasks, they have to find a way to fix this curse, and in the middle of this curse they start falling for each other again. I gave this book a 3.75. It was perfect fall vibes. It is set in the middle of October. If you want to get a few more reads in before the winter officially starts, this would be a perfect read. How I would describe it is, imagine practical magic set in the town of Stars Hollow, but with the humor of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I thought this book was hilarious. I love a few of the lines that are said by the characters, and I found myself laughing out loud through a lot of the parts. It's very surface level, which is understandable because it is a romantic comedy. There were some conflicts in here that was completely brushed over and it was quickly resolved. There was a trope in here that was included that I don't particularly like, and a lot of the conflicts that the characters have don't really get too in depth with. For example, there's one conflict where Vivian is a witch, but she never really was a full-on practicing witch because her mom, who passed away, made her hide her powers until she moved in with her aunt and her cousin. I wanted that explored more on how she overcame that conflict, but it never really was like really focused on. But like I said, it's a romantic comedy. I ended up giving it a 3.75 stars because I just wanted more. The next book I read in the month of November was Blood and Steel by Helen. This book is a part of Legends of Thesmar series, and this book follows a girl named Althea. Althea is an alchemist, and her only dream is to be a part of the shield bearers of Thesmar, and unfortunately females are not allowed to train or become one of these shields of Thesmar because there was a prophecy a long time ago that if a woman ever picked up a blade, there would be some destruction that would happen within their worlds. But she ends up proving her worth to the guild and ends up being able to go to the king to petition her case in order to become one of these. There's a character named Walder Hawthorne who is one of the legends of Thesmar, and he ends up having to accompany her to petition with the king. I'm so mad that I didn't pick up this book right away. I love the characters in this book and the found family that she ends up finding in the shield bearers. She finds two characters who are the comedic timing that is needed. There are wraiths that attack a lot of the citizens in this world. The only people who are able to kill these shadow wraiths are the war swords, because the only way to do it is through a certain metal, and they have to cut out their heart. She has to protect herself, and there's a dog in here who protects her, and I absolutely love this book. I can't wait to continue on with this rest of the series because I felt like the ending was so good. It was such a huge cliffhanger, and it's a 4.25 for me. The only reason why I didn't give it a 5 stars is because there's just a lot of training in this book for my taste, which makes sense because she wants to be a part of the Legends of Thesmar, and love interest Walder doesn't really show up for majority of the book. He just pops in here and there, but which is fine because like I want her to be able to develop her own character first before the love story even progresses along. And there is some spice in this book, so I would be aware, but I absolutely love it and I can't wait to continue on to the second book. The next book I read in the month of November was Bunny by Mona Awad. I thought this fit the vibes perfectly for November because it's still fall time, and also this book is kind of out of my comfort zone. I don't normally tend to reach for any sort of horror books. This is a literary fiction mixed with horror, and this book follows a girl named Samantha, and Samantha is attending a college that is known for the arts and is attending a graduate in writing program over at Warren University. And Warren University is sort of like the Ivy League school, and it comes with a lot of like the sort of stereotype of Ivy League schools where it's the pretentious, rich, unaware of their own surroundings kind of stereotype. I'm not saying that this is all Ivy Leagues or if it's true at all, but that's a stereotype that is filled in this book. She attends a writing group with a group called the Bunnies, and the Bunnies consist of 4 girls who are sort of like the popular girls in school, and they call each other Bunny. Remind me a lot of the Heathers, if you ever watched that movie, where they all are sort of like a cultish snobbish kind of like group, and she has a best friend who they spend their time making fun of the bunnies because they're always in their own little group and they are not aware of anyone else, and they're very snobbish, and they're especially towards Samantha and her friend. She gets invited to a little get together they have called the Smut Salon, and she ends up hanging out with these girls because she realizes that she likes feeling being a part of their group, where she feels a camaraderie and wants to be girly, and she's very lonely. Samantha is very lonely despite the fact that she has a friend that she hangs out with every day, and she ends up kind of scorning her friend a little bit while she hangs out with the bunnies. And the bunnies are keeping sort of a secret where they do rituals where they make their own people, which are life-size male dolls out of bunnies. And this book was very out of my comfort zone. I don't know what I read. In all honesty, I couldn't even describe to you what this book was, but I couldn't put it down because I just wanted to know what was happening and what was going on. It was very eccentric kind of book. I am mainly a romancy fantasy girl. Currently reading this book for a vlog I'm doing for reading books out of my comfort zone, and it was incredibly out of my comfort zone, but then again, I did enjoy it. But would I pick up another Mona Awad book? Maybe. It just depends on my mood, but this was very bingeable, and I would caution picking it up if you're very sensitive to gore topics, because this was filled with a lot of gore and the ending was very twisted. Yeah, I have no words for this book, so pick up at your own caution. The next book I read in the month of November was The Wishing Game by Meg Schaffer. This follows a character named Lucy Hart, who is a teacher's aide for a kindergarten class, and she ends up wanting to adopt a little boy named Christopher, who she tutors every single day after school. She ends up sharing her love for this series called the Clock Island book that is written for children, and she ends up sharing it to Christopher. And unfortunately, despite the fact that she wants to adopt him, the social worker tells her that she is unable to adopt Christopher because of her basic background, where she lives with 3 other roommates and she can barely make ends meet with her teaching aide salary. And she ends up finding out that her favorite childhood author, who writes the Clock Island books, is holding a contest to give a one last final copy of his book to one of the 4 contestants, and whoever wins this book ends up getting to do whatever they want with. So if they want to sell it to a publisher, they're completely allowed. And so Lucy, because of the fact that she kind of has sort of a past with the author, she ends up getting invited to be one of the 4 contestants. It's sort of like an adult Willy Wonka. That's how I wanted to kind of describe it, because that was the feeling that I got from it. I gave this book a 2.75. I just didn't like the things that happened in this book. I thought the trials that they had to go through, it was super easy, kind of elementary. It was just a bunch of puzzles and riddles and scavenger hunts that they had to go through, and I was hoping that the trials that they had to go through was a lot more in depth than that. And also, I felt really uncomfortable with her relationship with the boy that she wanted to adopt. She kept making him false promises. I felt the character of Lucy was incredibly unreliable. She was so adamant of adopting Christopher, but she was not taking the steps necessary in order to be able to adopt him and make her living situation better. She was not willing to get a different job, or at least start working a second job after her primary job to earn more money. And despite the fact that the social worker told her that maybe she wasn't fit to be his parent right now, she wasn't willing to prove it to her or herself to become a better person for Christopher. Sorry, my camera was overheating, and I gotta do this quick because my camera is overheating. But like I said, this one was a 2.75. I just didn't like any of the characters. That one of the characters who was introduced to be the love interest to Lucy, he's sort of like the illustrator for the children's books, and I just felt like the love story was very, very forced. I felt zero chemistry between them, and I just didn't like the book. I'm so sorry to whoever likes this book. It was just not for me, and I was very disappointed because I was looking forward to this book a lot. But suffice it to say, I might not be picking up any Meg Schaffer books in the future. And then the second to last book that I read in the month of November was Slaying the Shadow Prince by Helen Scheuerer. This book is a part of the Mortal Enemies to Lovers series, where, okay, let me see if I can explain this. They're all standalones, they're not connected whatsoever, but they're all standalones that is a part of their own world in a different series. For example, this book is a part of the Legends of Thesmar book, and a lot of people recommended for me to read this book in between the first and second one after Blood and Steel. And so it follows a character named Drew, and Drew is sort of like a ranger in her town, and the Shadow Wraiths have attacked her town and left it devastated to the point where all her people has to basically live underground because her whole entire area is filled with Shadow Wraiths. So the rangers have to take turns watching posts in order to be able to stop them from attacking. One warrior of the Legends of Thesmar is named Erin Sterling, and he's sort of the mentor to Wilder in Blood and Steel, and he comes there to help out with a sort of investigation because he finds out that the metals that they use to kill these wraiths are being messed with, and the magic in them is not really affecting the shadow wraiths anymore. And so he ends up trying to join forces with her because one of her people ends up getting kidnapped by these shadow wraiths, and he actually got affected by a shadow wraith. He is sort of part shadow wraith now because it got into his system. And Drew is sort of falling for Talamir, and it's just a love story between them two. And I like seeing Wilder as a younger kid, and I liked seeing Talamir and Drew together, but otherwise it was okay. It was very boring because I didn't really care about the characters that much and didn't really relate to them. It was just okay, and I gave a book 3 stars. And the last book I read in the month of November was The Boyfriend by Freida McFadden. I needed a sort of palette cleanser again because I did read Wishing Game and Slaying the Shadow Prince one after the other, and I needed something fast and fun in order to, because I felt a reading slump coming on because of the 2 kind of like mid books that I've read. So I needed some sort of palette cleanser, and Freida McFadden came to the rescue. It follows a character named Sydney, and she lives in New York, and she is trying to do the dating scene. They use an app called Cinch. Cinch is just New York based, so it's only New York locals that attend these apps. And after one terrible date with this guy who doesn't look like the guy that his profile picture, she is rescued by a handsome man, and she ends up dating him a few months later, but unfortunately some sort of serial killing is happening near her area, and because of this she is trying to be careful about who she dates, but she ends up falling for this guy, and he seems to be the perfect boyfriend. There is some flaws that she is starting to notice around him, and he might start being connected to these different serial killings. You don't know fully who it is because there are different characters who fit the suspicion of being the one who's going around killing these women, and the twist at the end when you find out who it really is insane, and I didn't see it coming. It's another Freida McFadden book. It's good in my book. I know that Freida McFadden books are not the best written, but do I love it for binge-worthy books can get me out of a reading slump. She always fits the bill, and I love reading her books just for that purpose. But that was the end of all the books that I read in November. It was kind of a mediocre month for me. I didn't get any 5 stars. The highest rated one was probably like a 4.5, and that was just because it was one of my anticipated reads. But otherwise this month was kind of mediocre, and I hope December brings out a better month for me so I can end the year off on a good note. But I'm so excited for the end of the year and all the Christmas content that people are bringing out right now and all the Bookmas stuff. Tell me in the comments below if you have any favorite Bookmas content creators that are coming out right now that I should be watching as well. But thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you want more, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.